Welcome back. This is part 3 of the World War I main causes of the war. So previously we have looked at the M part of main, so that was militarism. Now we're looking at alliances. So what are alliances? Well, if you take a look at the way any one country makes an agreement with another, everything's put in writing, it's very, very formal language. The treaties that are created cause the two countries to be allies or in an alliance. They're usually for political or economic reasons. By 1914, there were two great blocks of alliances. We've already looked at these when we did our mapping assignment, so you are aware of these. The one block is called the Triple Alliance, or the Central Powers, and that was started by Germany, the Austro-Hungarian Empire, and Italy. Later on, the Ottoman Empire and a bunch of other countries will join them. Then there's also the Triple Entente. We also refer to them as the Allies, and and the three original are Great Britain, France, and Russia. So you've already seen a map similar to this, and this shows what the two power blocks look like. So you've got this massive power block in the center, but it is surrounded by this equally massive block on either side. Now, the alliances took three different forms. The first and most commonly understood one was the Mutual Defense Treaty. And a mutual defense treaty, it's important to notice that this takes place between two powerful countries. And basically it's a you protect me and I'll protect you. And the best example is the Triple Alliance and the Triple Entente. But then you've also got economic protection treaties. And this one's a little harder to understand. But basically what the idea here is that a powerful country will protect a weaker country for some economic benefit. And in this case, we're talking about Russia and Serbia. Serbia controlled the access that Russia had to the Adriatic Sea. Russia needed that access so that it could do year-round trading. So Serbia knew that they had Russia over a barrel, basically. And so Russia agreed to support Serbia in the event that Serbia got attacked. And in return, Russia was allowed to send all its goods through Serbia to the Adriatic Sea so that they could now trade with the rest of the world. Okay, so I've asked a question here. Part of what I want you to be doing is listening and taking notes. And so as you listened to what I explained there, you should be able to answer these questions. Then there's the Neutrality Defense Treaty. Now, we always need to have neutral countries because you have to, no matter what war starts, eventually it has to end. And you cannot negotiate the end of the war on one person's treaty or one country's land over the other. You need neutral ground to meet on. So a neutrality defense treaty makes sure that those neutral places stay. So it's an agreement between a powerful country and a neutral country that the powerful country will agree or will protect the neutral country in case it's attacked. Now, in the case of Great Britain and Belgium, there was also a tactical reason for this, and that was because Belgium was going to act as a buffer zone between Great Britain and Germany. Okay, so you can answer that question. So how did the fact that these alliances existed help to start the war? Well, for this you have to connect it back to the militarism piece as well. So because everybody was so paranoid, and because everybody was increasing their army and they were all involved in these arms races, one of the things that made them really, really afraid was that if they got attacked by one of these bigger, badder, better armies, that they would cease to exist. And so they had to create these very, very strong alliances. And they were almost it wasn't necessarily that they wanted to support the other country, but rather they were afraid to not support them. They were afraid that if they didn't support their allies, then when something happened to them, they wouldn't be supported. Imperialism. So what is imperialism? Well, very simply, it's the making of empires. Building colonies far away from the mother country. Why do you want a colony? To provide raw materials. The colony will be a market for goods, so you can sell all your stuff there. And also, in times of war, the colonies had to send men to be soldiers. Great Britain, France, Russia, Germany, and the United States all wanted to be empires. So how does that lead to war? Well, this whole business of having colonies means that there's also going to be arguments between the different countries. When countries argue, they show their displeasure by using their armies and their navies. So what was it they were arguing about? Well, they would try to take each other's colonies over, or they would try to interfere with the trade, or any number of things. Anything that would interfere with their power. So for 40 years, conflict over trade and control of colonies almost started wars. And if you go back to the piece that we did on the events that lead up to the war, you've got the 1908 annexation of Bosnia, and then the two Moroccan crises, the one in 1905 and the one in 1911. This was about colonies, but as a result of arguments over colonies, Europe almost went to war 3 times between 1905 and 1911. So to give you an idea of what the colonies looked like, in 1880, this is Africa, and these are the colonial holdings of the different countries in Africa. Now this is 1880, and then this is 1914. Here you can see that hardly any part of Africa has not been claimed, and so each of these countries in here exerts power over these different places, but they also pull wealth out of them. So this is how they're getting richer and richer. Now, just in case you think that Africa was the only place that was being colonized, nope. There's Asia. Asia has been pretty much taken over by 1914. You've got the Philippines, you've got Japan, you've got all of them. Pardon me, Japan has taken over Korea. My apologies. So you've got all of these different imperial powers that are taking over pieces of land that don't belong to them. The largest of these empires was the British Empire, and it was said that the sun never sets on the British Empire. And when you look at the red, that's all British holdings, you can understand why that was a true statement. And finally, we have nationalism. So how did nationalism cause the war? Well, first of all, what is nationalism? Nationalism is that feeling of great pride in your country. It's like being proud to be Canadian, being proud to be part of this country, being proud of your homeland. And most of the time, that's a good thing. You cheer for your sports teams, and, during the Olympics, we make sure that we are very, very loud when our hockey teams hit the ice, all of that sort of stuff. But when you add the word extreme, that's when you become dangerous. As with anything, extreme nationalism can cause problems. Some people are willing to take any action, and that includes killing, dying, even starting a war to support their nation, and they really don't care how it affects anybody else. So how does nationalism start a war? Well, it was super strong in Serbia. According to anthropologists, it's considered part of the national character of Serbia to admire martyrs and to never forget or forgive a wrong that had been done to them, even if it was 700 years ago. So they resented Austria for taking Bosnia. Remember, they annexed Bosnia. And I've explained already about how Serbia wants Bosnia to be angry so that Bosnia will rebel against Austria. Once it has done that, Serbia will then be free to come in and take over Bosnia. So that's sort of a long-term plan. In order to allow this to happen, the Serbians allowed freedom fighters to train in their territory. And you'll notice I've got this in quotes, because today, of course, we would refer to them as terrorists. If you wanted to learn how to be a terrorist before 1914, you went to Serbia. Okay, so they had all of these different camps, they had all this training, rather like what was happening in Afghanistan prior to 9/11. So how did nationalism start in the war again? Gavrilo Princip and the Black Hand had trained in Serbia. So we're still talking about Serbian nationalism. The nationalistic feeling over the ownership of the provinces of Alsace and Lorraine. Now we're in France. So you've got the Serbians who are feeling nationalistic, but you've also got the French who are feeling nationalistic. They're upset that Germany, in the Franco-Prussian War, Germany took Alsace and Lorraine, and now they are willing to go to war to get those two back. So when we look at the Austro-Hungarian Empire, one of the things I wanted you to notice was the various ethnicities, because one of the reasons that the Serbians gave for wanting to take over Bosnia was that ethnically they were the same people. But when you look at the Austro-Hungarian Empire, look at all the different ethnicities that they have within that empire. So you can imagine that there's not only a lot of diversity, but there's also probably a lot of tension there. So all of these groups had their own language and culture, which was being suppressed under the regime of the Austro-Hungarian leadership. Okay, this is where we're going to stop this particular one, so part 4 will be coming up very shortly.